Everybody, welcome back. My name is Yumble, and today I'd like to discuss parking in city skylines. So you might be wondering, why should I build a parking lot? What's the point? They just take up space. Parking lots are not necessarily the most beautiful thing in the world when compared to architecture or other things. But I think that you can do them justice if you focus hard enough and really have a plan for your parking in city skylines. I want to say up front that it's not completely necessary as far as a built-in metric for parking or anything like that. The truth is, Sims vehicles will just disappear when they get to their destination if there's not a parking spot for them. So that's the default kind of vanilla mode. But if you play with a bit more realism and a bit more thought put into your shopping center, or if you play with realistic parking turned on, there is a setting in Traffic Manager called Realistic Parking. If you go into your settings and you go down to Traffic Manager, if you use mods, under Gameplay, I spoke about this in our last video, enable more realistic parking. This type of scenario that we have in front of us, this shopping center, becomes a necessity, where you need to find a spot for Sims to put their cars. Otherwise, they'll drive around indefinitely. So the reasons that I'd say to use parking are for realism or aesthetic, or because you have to, because you've turned on realistic parking in Traffic Manager. I want to talk about parking lots, different parking solutions for you, and also parking garages as well, just to get some variety in the parking and make your city a bit more realistic. Before we get into all the fancy mods and assets that you can use to create a parking lot, I wanted to show you one vanilla option, vanilla/DLC option for creating a parking lot in city skylines. These are actually Edison hyperchargers, and there's another variant, the free charge EV charging. These come with the organic and local produce commercial buildings within the Green Cities DLC. And what I've been doing to get these, there's a 50-50 chance that you'll get one of these every time you zone a 2x2. Like this one's an Edison hypercharger, right? You can keep zoning 2x2s until you get the ones you want, and it makes a parking lot. I thought that was kind of a cool, unique way to solve this problem of parking in city skylines. And this, of course, you wouldn't be using Traffic Manager or anything in this case if you're just playing on console or playing on PC without mods. Essentially, you just zone these in for aesthetic, delete the ones that you don't want, unless you want a building in your parking lot. That's fine, that's realistic enough. But yeah, you end up with this type of scenario, and there's a 2x3 variant, so if you want to zone 2x3 instead, there's a 50-50 chance that you'll get this one, which kind of has a roof, the free charge EV charging station. But I thought that was a really cool way to do it. Basically, you end up creating a district, like I've done here. You end up designating that district as organic and local produce, if you have that downloaded through the DLC options. You know, if you've purchased that, and then you just build a road surrounding the whole thing, and essentially it's as good a parking lot as any, and it also satisfies commercial needs as well. So what you end up with is something that looks just like this, and I thought that was a really cool and unique solution to parking without using mods that also employ a few people, you know. So you'll still have trucks showing up here and things like that, but it creates a parking lot that this college district desperately needs. So let's say we want to put a parking lot in this area right here. I have a few different mods that I could use to pull this off, or a few different assets. First, I think I'll show you big parking lots, because I think it's the easiest option of the two. Big parking lots is essentially a collection of roads and parking space assets that you put together evenly spaced, and it makes a real nice result. You always start with the drive road for this. It can be downloaded from the Steam Workshop as well. It's free. You know, if you have this game on PC, this is totally free to you. So amazing. You always start with the drive road. Big parking lots. You can see the logo up there. Big parking lots. And for this, I recommend turning off within the snapping options. Turn off road guidelines, because those are only going to hinder you. Because we want exact measurements here, and we don't want it snapping to anything unnecessarily. So I would always start with maybe going a few units in, maybe 3 units up in a few different places here. 3 units up, and then 3 units up on the other side. So those are our drive roads. This is a drive road here, this is a drive road, and then you end up using the border road. Now the border road, I'll try to explain this as we go along. Each road has a different type of border. The drive road has kind of a sidewalk appearance on both sides. The border road has that border on one side. So if you draw this clockwise, you might have to reverse it later if you don't do it this way. But if you go clockwise, an exact number of units, so I'm going up 12 units specifically. I'll show you why in just a second. Excuse me, counterclockwise. I said clockwise so many times. Counterclockwise is the way to go. If you do it clockwise, the border will end up on the inside, and you'll have to reverse all the roads. So counterclockwise makes it easy. And then the filler road is what you use to fill in the area that you're going to be parking within. And the goal here is to leave one unit going across in rows, essentially. And this is very flexible. You can build it however you want. So to get that one unit, the best way to do it is to go in increments of 3. This is why I went up by 12, because 12 is divisible by 3. So it should give us a few rows here. Now we've got this. We've kind of got this shape. There's kind of ways in and ways out, and a border, and this center area. And now the actual magic happens. If everything went correctly, and you have rows of individual squares, you know, lines of individual squares by going up by 3 units, now it's really, really easy to go to your to your big parking lots options here. And at its most basic, it's just this one here. It's just the parking space, which goes in easy. It goes like this. It's a 1x1 building that zones in right where the squares are. And oops, if you do it wrong, it goes like that. But you just delete it, try again. Nice. That is the result. It gets a little more involved, not by much, but it can get a little more involved. There are 5 unit options, which make things real easy. Very quick when you want to do them in bulk. If you want some variety as far as accessibility parking, I applaud you and recommend it, and it also looks really nice in a parking lot. And you can put parking on the other side to balance that out. You know, there's individual parking spaces, there's sets of 3, there's sets of 6. You can do no parking sets of 6 if you want to place your own car props in the parking garage, just to make it look nice. And it comes with a clipping remover for when this happens. When you use certain ones, you'll see that there might be a little piece missing and it looks kind of bad. The clipping remover just puts down that road texture that comes with it. But yeah, you just end up filling in all the spaces. It's very, very simple, but very, very versatile at the same time. And very user-friendly once you've figured out the building of the roads. As long as your math is correct when you're building the roads, it's very, very easy to get it right. And once you've done this, I also strongly recommend taking paths, even just regular paths, and just connecting them to this, because people will come and they'll park in the parking lot. I don't know if we'll actually see anyone park here. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. A lot of these buildings have parking built in, so it might not matter. But once they've parked their car, when the pedestrian gets out, if it's quicker for them just to get to the road this way, then please allow them that. You know, give them a path. People don't walk on the grass in this game. They're very obedient to a fault, so I'd recommend giving them an out at the top, or they can walk out through the bottom if they want to. That's a really effective solution. If you really want to get crazy and expand on it a little bit, my favorite parking garage asset creator is called King Leno. All these things with crowns, these are all his. He has so many great options. University City parking garage, mall parking garage, which those can be used anywhere really. Modern parking garage, which just looks amazing. 8-story modern parking garage. And then this huge downtown parking garage, which is just, I mean, I'll place this one. This is overkill for this area. But if you ever want to add a parking garage to the mix for realism, you can totally do that. And to take it even a step further, I'm going to take the University City parking garage and see if we can't pull off something extra interesting here. Maybe we'll make it so... Let's try this. Let's see if this works the way I want it to. I'm just going to plop this down here on the corner, and King Leno was kind enough to leave these spaces through his parking garages. Some of them have just these spaces that run through, which can be really handy if you ever want to say, put a road through it. I'm going to move this over by 1 or 2, and we'll see if we can do something with it. Maybe just to there. We'll just kind of line it up with the situation here. So now if I wanted to run a drive road through the parking garage, which is a pretty realistic scenario in life in general, this is very, very plausible. Could absolutely happen. And then I want to run this road back to that other road, just trusting that it attached in there. The roads inside don't really have to make sense, because we're not actually going to be driving vertically in the parking garage. Though cars do park in these parking spaces. These are just as valid as this type of parking space down here. Just as usable to traffic. You can see they're already parking over here. They'll park in here as well, and the road through it isn't really necessary, but I think it adds to the realism. I think that a lot of times when you go to a parking garage, you drive in that parking garage because it's a parking garage. So why not do that? So that lends itself to this type of scenario. That opening shot that we had, this is a little shopping center in the city that we're doing on stream right now, and same concept. So we've got our parking lot here, and then there's a parking garage, and then there's additional parking up against the parking garage, which in the US at least, this is a super plausible situation. This happens all the time. So can't recommend that enough. Try to integrate parking garages where appropriate whenever you're building a parking lot, if need be. If it's overkill, it's overkill. But if you want to do it, you can get some really nice results. Upwards and onwards. Let's do these guys next. Let's do parking lot roads. Parking lot roads is kind of the older version of big parking lots, but it's still very much useful, and it still finds its way into my gameplay in different places. It's somewhat, compared to big parking lots, I would say parking lot roads are much more dense. So if you have, say, a shopping center that you want to have a smaller parking lot in with more spaces, I would go for parking lot roads. These also tend to look pretty realistic as far as the textures and how the spots go in. But basically, parking lot roads is these 4 networks. This is a drive road, just like the big parking lots drive road that just gets cars into the parking lot. So there's no actual parking on this road. This is the small parking lot road, medium parking lot road, large parking lot road, and they all hold different amounts of space. So technically 22 meter, 40 meter, 58 meters, so widths is what we're talking about here. And each of these support a different amount of parking spaces, or different numbers of rows of parking. So if this one has 2 rows of parking on a 2-lane road, this is cars will be driving down the middle of this, of course, in both directions. This one has 2 2-lane roads expressed by those lighter areas, and you'd end up, it's similar on each of these. You end up placing these parking spots here. These don't snap or anything, by the way, so you end up frequently dabbling with Move It just to wiggle them into position as it goes. Like if you need to tighten them up a little bit or move them, a great way to do it. They count as buildings, so you can always select the marquee tool and select buildings by double-clicking it. And these are fully, you can move them using Move It, but it's very you have to line them up and copy them over and stuff like that. So that's fine. So speaking of copying, this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows of parking up top on the largest of the roads. And once again, you just end up placing these in and copying them around as necessary. So I like these for more of a small shopping center or maybe a small residential area. Big parking lots are more if you want your parking lot to kind of boom or have some more flexibility maybe. These are, I think they're slightly less flexible, but maybe a bit more elegant. It depends who you ask. Some people only use one type of parking lot. I found uses for both or either. So right now, I'm going to see if I can do something decent looking. If my measurements are correct here, it's the medium size. I've done no measurements, but let's say let's create a bit of a parking plaza here. This is how that road connects. So you end up with this kind of nice. It starts with a smaller area here, and the curb network within the network connects very nicely and very cleanly if you look at it. So that just for the sake of example. you might do, what's that, 5 units in and then 3 units over. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. 3 units over and then back to the road. And you can do rows and rows of parking this way, and just like in the picture, if you hover over each of these, you get some nice inspirational photos of how you can do this, how you can pull this off. Different options. But really, you end up doing this. You end up placing buildings alongside of it if you want to. You know, you can totally zone alongside other roads, or in this case, I might recommend plopping some commercial buildings. Let's say we go to our low density commercial things here. Like, what if we want to do... why are there no zoning squares on here? I've got a zoning square toggle mod, which in this case is going to turn out real handy. And we'll just zone these in. Keep it easy. So you've got this low-density shopping center with probably too much parking. But this is what it ends up looking like. You just measure this out, eyeball it, get it close, plop it in. As I said before, big parking lots, it's all automatic. As you draw the rows of 1x1 squares, the things plop in automatically, and they all end up perfect as you put in the parking spots. They end up going on the grid. Here, there's no grid. You can see we're kind of off the grid. So I'm going to select that. In Move It, you can do rotation. Rotate at center after clicking the parking lot that you want to use, and then click the segment of this, and it actually squares it off perfectly. So isn't that nice? So now you can move this into place using Move It. You can duplicate it, put it up top. Use the, it's been recommended to me that I use the light. You can see the lamppost in the middle here is right about in the center of the parking spaces, and you just end up giving it as much space as it needs to exist. So same deal over here. I'm going to take this one. We're going to line it up properly. Select it, rotate at center, click anything else that's squared up properly, and then use Move It. If you hold Control while moving something and move it, that's actually the most refined way to adjust something. So you can duplicate that, and then holding Control, I'm just going to keep this squared up where we want it. And of course, in big parking lots, you can also do accessibility spots and some other options. Let's see what we got here. Oh, there's charging spots as well, which is interesting. So like car, you know what I mean. Let's say we want to have our accessibility spaces right here, right in front of the store. And maybe I would do, if I had a little more foresight into this, I would do some on the other side too, just because it's a good habit to get into, and it adds some diversity to your parking lot as well. It's just a good thing. And you'll find that as you build more parking lots, there might be other situations that arise where you want to have, how can I say it, where you might want to have different variations of things. You know, you might find other uses for these parking lots that I've not even discovered. You can do diagonal parking spaces with big parking lots. You know, you can do all kinds of interesting things. And this one, just to give this a sense of completion, same deal. Rotate at center, square it off, move it where it goes, holding Control. We're going to duplicate it, and then move it into here. It's already squared off, so it's good to go. And if you hold Alt, right-click and drag, you can rotate the thing perfectly. So you're still 90'd off. You still have that nice 90 degrees, but it's flipped. And there you go. So you end up with a nice little look. We've got a Penny's. We've got a laundromat. So we've got this place growing in with a parking lot in front of it. This parking lot is a little overkill for this set of spaces, but that is the rudimentary way that parking lot roads may work. And of course, you could put a parking garage next to this. I do think that big parking lots integrates much better with say a parking garage. If you have a parking garage that you want to draw roads through, or something like this. I haven't pointed this out specifically yet, but I'd love to make mention of it. 4-lane road, like a 4-lane skinny road. This one in particular is from Network Extensions 2. It's actually this road right here. But if you use this one, you get turns in both directions, and you can put a parking lot off of this, and that's very, very effective, because sometimes the parking lot will get a little jammed up in the entrances and exits, and it helps to have a 4-lane road to feed it sometimes, depending on how busy the parking lot is. In this case, very simple, way in, way out, 2 ways in, 2 ways out on either side, and then a parking lot down the middle, and cars are already parking there. To speak to the flexibility of big parking lots, I did the same thing over here. You can do some more oddly shaped stuff if you want to. You can do diagonal parking lots. You can any sort of shape you can imagine, really. All kinds of stuff. There are options for edge parking within big parking lots as well. It's not a commercial for big parking lots, but I do use their stuff quite a bit. Another example of edge parking for this little commercial center we have here. But yeah, that's essentially it. Parking lots are not always necessary. I wouldn't recommend overusing them or anything like that, because they can take up quite a bit of space, but I do recommend trying to integrate parking lots into your city, especially if you turn on Realistic Parking in Traffic Manager. Guys, thank you so much for listening to me. Thanks for letting me talk about this admittedly polarizing thing, because like a lot of people don't like parking lots. But thanks for checking this out. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to check out the stream on Twitch as well. I stream on Twitch 2 days a week, sometimes 3 days a week these days. But yeah, we're on Twitch pretty frequently. And there's also a Discord as well. If you have more specific questions or if you want to check out some memes, feel free to join the Discord and discuss Skylines and content creation. Guys, thank you for joining me. I've been Yumble. I will see you in the next stream or the next video.